Good evening and welcome to Undoing I Do with Stephanie and Ade. I'm Stephanie Hunnell, the owner of the Hunnell Law Group in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and your co-host for this evening.
And I am Adela Sherilyn Dow, the owner of the law offices of Adela Sherilyn Dow in Staten Island, New York.
Good
How are you
evening.
today, Steph?
I'm good. How are you?
I am just fine, but I am very happy that it is almost the end of the week.
On
You're
Tuesday, I thought it was Thursday because there was so much that was going on.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I
I
haven't
know.
even gone out in the snow. Have you gone out in the snow?
No. I had to go in for a real estate closing, a signing today, but that was it. I left the house for 30 minutes, did a quick signing, and came right back. It's too cold. I'm not a cold weather girl. I'm from California. I love my warm weather.
I'm not a cold weather person either. I just have this little person, this 7-year-old, who thinks that like the snow is akin to the beach, and it's not. The snow and the beach are two different things. But if it were the beach outside, I'd be down.
Yep.
But I think I'm gonna have to put on. I don't even have a snowsuit, but I think I'm gonna have to put on something and go out and like pelt her with some snowballs. That might be.
You'll love every second of it, I'm sure.
So we are in a winter wonderland on the East Coast, and it's so fitting since we're going to talk about holiday parenting time.
It is.
And it's beginning to look a lot like the holidays,
Yep.
Christmas, New Year's, all of that.
Yep. We're like what, day 8 into Hanukkah, I think it is. And Christmas is next week already. I've done nothing.
I have nothing. I've done nothing. Yeah. And so I have a little person at home, like a really little person, and he's 15 months. And I'm kind of afraid to put up the tree because he just grabs at everything, and I'm a little bit concerned. I saw an ER episode, stories from the ER, where this lady had this big tree and the tree fell on her, and I'm like,
Oh,
no, I can't. Maybe I'll just put up some stockings instead.
you know what? It's December 17th. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we all have to make adjustments for like COVID and staying in and just put up some decorations and be
Exactly.
done with it.
I have the holidays in my heart, you know.
As long as your other little human doesn't, mind so much.
The little human won't mind. So, we were, before we got on, I was telling you that I am in the middle of dealing with a holiday scheduling plan. It's not a nightmare yet. It would be a nightmare if I was dealing with it next week. But I think that one of the biggest things for people to understand is that when you don't have an order, the most important thing for you to do, and if you're in the midst of a divorce, or if you were never married and you have a custody battle going on or parenting time, is to plan ahead. Don't wait until the last minute to do this.
I think
Now is the last minute.
it is the last minute. And by the way, I mean, we probably could have done this show last month before Thanksgiving. And then there would be time to plan because right now we're already into Hanukkah and we're a week away from Christmas. So we're really like, if you're trying to go into court and get something and make something happen now, you're pretty much, I mean, not necessarily out of luck, but orders to show cause and these emergent bases are very difficult on the holidays,
Yeah,
at least in my experience. So yeah, we are a little under the gun now, but that's why it's very important to have a plan in place.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, you're talking about orders to show cause. We both belong to a group of New Jersey family lawyers, and I don't know if you saw on a post the other
I
day
did.
where one of our colleagues said that the order to show cause, which is an emergency application for holiday time, was denied and was adjourned to January, which is not the holiday time. It's not. There's no
Um,
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or any of that in January.
no, and I think if I'm not mistaken, was that the same case, or did somebody else comment and say that they had filed a regular motion back in like October, but it kept
Never been
getting
heard.
moved, and so then it became an emergent issue in their mind, but not in the judge's
See, that's a problem. You know, you really are you're in a situation where you need to make the most rational decision for yourself and your children in
mind.
a way that is as accommodating to the children and as unselfish as possible.
Right.
And leaving this stuff to the last minute has people filing orders to show cause, spending all kinds of money. It's thousands of dollars to do an order to show cause, even if it's a simple one.
Right. It is, because when we're doing those, we have to file those with legal briefs. So we have that added time plus the certifications. We're usually shifting things aside in order to get it done in a timely manner. So it's all really a quick upfront cost, and an expensive cost. I have to say, I was reading some articles again to see if there was any new guidelines or anything out there that pops out, because we did do a show back in April, I think, about parenting time during COVID. And this is a little different because it's holiday time, but there really is not a lot of guidance. There's no cases on it, and I think, practically speaking, at least in my opinion, is that if you're going through a divorce, or you're just starting to separate and you're not married and you're having to figure out parenting time, this is 1 year. You're going to have something in place later on. If you can be accommodating, because guess what? Whatever you do now is going to be what your child sees, whatever reactions and behaviors. And if you have to miss, look, I don't want anybody to miss out on Christmas. I think Christmas for kids is probably like one of the biggest holidays.
Absolutely.
But if it had to happen, it's one Christmas. Then next Christmas, you might get the entire Christmas time. Negotiate that. And then the following time, you could split Christmas some way. But you have to be okay for your kids.
Right. And so here's the thing. So when we think about holiday parenting time, at least with my practice, there are a lot of nationalities that I deal with who also do a big celebration on Christmas Eve. And so we're not just talking about the Christmas Day celebration, we're also talking about the Christmas Eve celebration. And so whether it's the feast of, how many fishes are there? How many fish? Seven fish. Seven fish. Is it fishes or fish? It's fish, right? But everybody says fishes.
I think everybody says fishes. Yeah.
Why did we do that? But anyway. But yeah, so we're talking about, okay, who's going to have the children for Christmas Eve, and then what does Christmas Eve extend into? If we're in Staten Island, there are judges on Staten Island who don't want to have children traveling at midnight, right? Because you'll have some people say, oh, okay, well, Christmas Eve technically ends at midnight, so I want the children to be, to me. And one of the judges in particular comes to mind, and she says, look, Christmas, any of those holidays where people are imbibing, I don't want children to be on the road. Okay. Now we might not have that big of an issue this year because of
Avila tells us it's 7 fishes.
Who said that?
Avila.
Oh, Avila. Hi, Avila. It's 7. Okay. Yeah. Avila's from Staten Island, so that's what you know. So she'll always say, if there is a holiday where there's going to be drinking and partying, I do not want children out on the road. And so in that situation, you may get a Christmas Eve visit that goes to Christmas morning. And then you have the emotional issue of, I'm not going to wake up with my kids on Christmas, because of course that to kids is, and also to adults who live through our kids, is the most magical point of Christmas, right? When they run down the stairs or they run to the Christmas tree and, look to see what they have.
Yeah.
And so that it's important that we're dealing with these usually on a rotating basis. There are some families who say, well, look, my holiday celebration is on Christmas Eve and I always want the children on Christmas Eve. What do you think about that?
Well, I've had that, and I actually have that somewhat right now as well. And sometimes it works out a lot easier because, okay, you get every Christmas Eve, as long as you're understanding you're not drinking and you're bringing the child home at like 10 or 11. So that way the child can go to sleep and then they wake up in the morning and then they have the Christmas at the other parent's house. And I've had it work out really well. I've had it also work out not very well because all of a sudden it's 10 or 11 o'clock and Mary's not home and you're calling and what's going on. And all of a sudden that, the parent had a couple of drinks and now the mom has to either go pick them up so there's issues. I mean, there's issues with every kind of schedule that you can have. But I think if you take control as parents and figure out what works best for both of you, that's the highest probability of making it work.
Yeah, and it's really that you have to take control with each other and not against each other. Because here's the deal, and again, like Steph said, we're not saying that the holidays are unimportant, but if you have to compromise, especially if you are actively in a divorce, don't think that that compromise is going to go unnoticed. If my client says, my children are always with me and my family on Christmas Eve, but you know what? Fine. We'll give you the kids on Christmas Eve. We want Christmas Day, and we'll pick the children up at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. Realize that if you're in court, a judge, if they had to get involved with this, is taking mental note or actual note and saying, oh, okay, and that does impact the judge's decision. Look, judges are people. They are human beings. And so they are swayed and impacted by various things. If you act badly, they're swayed and impacted by that. They're not automatons. And so, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And so that's something that you really want to be mindful of. And the other thing is that it's not about you. This is not about you. And everybody knows that, especially during COVID, we all have become aware that we need to be more flexible and we need to be more malleable with respect to our celebrations and things like that. There have been weddings canceled. There have been people who haven't been able to have birthdays and gender reveals and all kinds of things. And you have to be flexible.
Agreed. Totally agree. I want to back up because I was almost interrupting you, or I did interrupt you, but the ability to get along and co-parent is one of the factors, and I'm not saying it correctly, but it is one of the factors in the state of New Jersey when a judge is considering who should be the primary custodial parent or when they're making a decision regarding custody. So you being reasonable and looking out not for you and what you want, but what's best for the child. And if that means that just because your family always had, Christmas Eve, well, now your family's dynamic has changed, so you have to change. And if the judge sees that, that is one of the factors to consider, and that could weigh in your favor. So it's not only just that the judge is a human being and looking at, making their check marks on naughty or nice lists. It's actually also a factor that the court will consider when they're weighing in favor of custody of one parent or another.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that falls under the umbrella of the ability to facilitate the relationship, right? And so, and you must, as a custodial parent, demonstrate that you're able to facilitate the non-custodial parent's relationship with the children. You can't demonstrate that. You got some issues that are going to be coming down the pike, and your adversary is keeping track, because as your adversary's attorney, if I'm representing that person, I'm telling them to keep track.
Yep.
And so, when we are dealing with parenting time, I have a situation now where I got a holiday parenting time suggestion, whereby the father would have 7 days of this break. And I responded and I said, just because the mother doesn't celebrate Christmas, this doesn't mean that she shouldn't have any of the holiday break with the child. If the child is off from school, they're not off from school for more than 10 days in total, including the holidays. How reasonable is it for you to ask for 10 and for the mother? And these people have almost a split custody arrangement. So it's not like the mother has so much more time with the child during the regular parenting time. And so the mother in that situation, I think she's being very reasonable. She said, look, I'll do 6 days instead of the 7 days. And guess what? I'm having pushback from father and father's attorney. Isn't that something?
That's surprising. That seems overly reasonable. If you're looking at 10 days and you're saying, fine, you can have 6.
Right.
Also forget, these holidays are not just about the holiday. They're about time off with your child that's not in school. You don't have whatever activities, because usually like the extracurricular stuff is also not going on.
Exactly.
You actually get to spend quality time doing whatever it is that you want to do with that child and connecting and making that bond. versus, okay, you get your homework done. All right, we have to shuffle you off to baseball practice now or whatever it is. So these are things like, just because it's the holiday, it's also a break from school, it's a break from life. It's a way to connect with your kids.
That's right. This is the ultimate reset that we all hopefully have each and every year, and we
Yeah.
hopefully look forward to. And so, listen, in that situation, father, and I'm not picking on anybody, it just happens to be that in this situation, it's the father. In that situation, father is going to be in a situation where he's less likely to have what he would consider to be a reasonable response on the other side. Because now you're going to have a situation where mom is going to double down, and mom is going to draw the lines in the sand, and people start to tense up, right? And so we have to realize that's what happens in these situations. And because of that, you want to give this as much time as possible. What do we normally do in situations? We normally alternate holidays.
Right.
Right.
And so I want to touch on that before you. I think there's a couple of holidays that are maybe a little bit different that should be shared holidays versus ones that I think it's better to just alternate. So like Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July. I mean, I even think Halloween, depending on the age of the child, should just be alternated as well.
I had a Halloween issue today where I was arguing about Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Hey, it's December.
I know. It's a really important holiday to these people.
I know. And it is very important. Look, everybody has their own little piccadillies when it comes to like the thing. This is the one holiday or the one, day that they want. It's very special for whatever reason. And hopefully the other side can recognize that, and maybe it's a trade-off for something else on the other side that is very important to you to spend time with the kids.
Exactly. I mean, and when you think about the holidays that should be shared, we can also talk about birthdays.
Yeah.
I always think that birthdays should be shared. I can't imagine as a mother not seeing my child, either one of my children, on their birthday. And I also don't think that birthdays should be alternated. Those are not, I think it's really important for the children to see both parents, and for both parents to see the children. And if you can in any way deal with each other, there's no domestic violence or anything like that going on, if you can be with each other with the children on their birthdays, I think children go ham over that type of stuff. I think they love to have time where they're just hanging with both of their parents. And most children, once they've gotten to the point that they realize that their parents are getting divorced, they look forward to having certain time with both of their parents. They look forward to it because it's a rare occurrence normally.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I also think that's just a healthy way to grow a great way to grow a healthy adult, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
If your child or children can see that part of you, like, you guys don't have to like each other, and you can stay on opposite ends of the room, and you can just have a good time without having to, don't have any clashes. I think that's great. I do agree with you about the importance of a child's birthday as being a day that shouldn't be alternated.
Yeah, and then you have the break. Most of my clients don't split the break. Most of my clients, and I'm talking about the holiday break. What do they call it? Do they call this they don't call this the midwinter break. That's the February break. And New Jersey doesn't get that February break.
I think this is called just a winter break, isn't it?
Just a winter break, maybe. Yeah.
This year it's totally different with COVID. Who knows? Everybody's at home anyway.
Everybody's at home. But sometimes when they split the break, somebody's going off to see someone, so they're traveling for part of the break. But most of my clients don't split the break. Most of my clients continue the regular schedule, and then they carve out the days. So the Thanksgiving day, the day after Thanksgiving is also considered to be a holiday for a lot of in a lot of parenting agreements. And so the Thanksgiving day would go into the next day, right? Thanksgiving is an overnight, right. But then the other parent has the child on Black Friday. And the same thing goes with respect to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because they're two different holidays. We always split those. And I think that it gives the children a degree of expectation of being with both parents during the holiday time. And I think it also continues a sense of normalcy for the kids, that they know that they won't be someplace for too long. They'll be coming back to their regular dwelling, especially if you have young kids who have attachment issues.
Right, right. And I do think it's important when it's the age of the child that I look at some of the schedules when we're making recommendations and we're looking at helping craft a schedule. The younger children, I want to make sure that they have more time, even if it's in smaller amounts, versus older kids who have other things going on. They might have less time just for logistical reasons. They want to spend time with their friends and stuff.
They just don't want to be with you.
Teenagers are like, I'm out.
But can I get $50 though as I leave? And then I'll see you later. Thanks. Or can you drop me off at the mall?
Yep.
Yeah, but that the most important thing about these holidays is to make sure that you make your children the center of this time, especially the younger ones. We don't have a lot of time with them whereby they are totally engrossed in us and in the family. You only have a certain amount of years usually where that's the case. So now, what do you do when you have a situation where the child just doesn't want to go?
Gosh, so I mean, it's really hard. When it's a younger child, I always say you don't really have a choice. If the child's going, there's no choice. As the children or child gets older, I think you have to consider what the child wants and the reason why the child is wanting it. If it's just because you think that the parent is poisoning the child against you, you have to give more pushback, I think. But if the child is really saying, look, I'm tired of going back and forth. I want to do this. As they're growing, you have to try to respect that a little bit.
Yeah,
And I say a little bit because I do know that every situation is different.
Every situation is different. And what I find is that the older a child gets, not that, and again, we have to highlight this, there is no age at which a judge will say, Johnny, whatever you want, that's what we're doing. That just goes. There are ages at which it doesn't make as much sense for a parent to force a child to go. And that would be, in my mind, it's always that 15 and up range. Right. Whereby what we're concerned about and what judges are concerned about is that children will, if they're forced to do it, will eventually vote with their feet and be harmed. So, you tell Sally that she has to be at parent one's house, and Sally says, well, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. You get Sally there, right? You physically get Sally there. And then Sally says, peace out, everybody. And she's out through the back door, or she gets out the window. And this is how we have situations where children end up missing. And so a lot of times you'll see judges say, well, look, Sally's 17, Sally's 16.
Yeah.
I'm not going to force this because I don't want the child to end up in a worse situation.
Right. I had a runaway situation in May where we were in court in order to show cause. And it was a sad situation because you also want to make sure you're not running the risk of just letting the child be the dictator of how everything is going to be. So it's a balancing act. But you also, again, you force this child to go someplace where he doesn't want to be, and he's gone for, I think, a few days. It was at least 3 days.
Wow.
So that was rough.
That's I can't imagine. I mean, and not knowing where your child is, I can't imagine that. And thankfully, in this situation, the child was fine.
Yeah.
But in some situations, the child is not fine. And so again, this is where your divorce or your family attorney, if they're representing you properly, will probably implore you to look. We know this is once again, this is about him or her or they. This is not about you. And you have to do what will ultimately be in the child's best interest, again, without allowing the child to rule the complete roost, because that's really not what's supposed to be happening. And you can, in this process of getting divorced or separating, you really can put your child in a situation where you embolden them to do things that are detrimental not only to them but also to the co-parenting relationship, and you
Yep.
can't let that happen, because children are brilliant. They're
Yep.
they are the best
And they
at
will manipulate you to no end.
absolutely. Absolutely. Tell mom this thing, tell dad this thing, tell dad another thing, tell the other dad another thing. And it's just, you
Yep.
cannot underestimate your children.
I find what I see as far as the most often manipulated situations is when the two parents are not getting along.
Yes.
When a child sees that both parents are pitted against each other, that's when they know they can get away with the most stuff.
Oh, absolutely. They know that their parents are ripe for the picking at that
Yep.
point. They are some fresh fruit at that point. And kids always know. They always
I
know.
know. Yes.
You know, it's like an innate situation. They always know when they can get you, right? And what they can say in order to get you.
Yeah.
So, so when in the state of New Jersey has a holiday schedule that they suggest, right? New York doesn't really have that.
Yeah, we
Um,
have a handout that we get that they have in the courthouse for suggested time. I know another judge had a more extensive suggested time that I have, but I think it was only one judge that was using it. And then long term, long distance parenting time schedule.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing when we talk about the long distance, whereby the non-custodial parent lives somewhere else, or the custodial parent is traveling with the child to bring the child to the non-custodial and vice versa. In those situations, what normally happens in my neck of the woods is that a parent will be given not only additional time during the summer, but they'll also be given the entire school break.
Right. Yeah, because they're not seeing the child throughout the year.
Right, and so those are really specialized situations, especially when it comes to the religious holidays, or the major holidays such as Christmas and Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, and so forth, because you end up, if you have the non-custodial parent having the entire holiday every year, you end up ridding the custodial parent of the ability to have these
Yep.
fun times with the child, these fun family holidays with the child.
Right. Yeah, it's really tough. I have one right now, and I have to say, with everything that's going on in the world, it's even tougher because in New Jersey we have the suggested 14-day quarantine.
Right.
So this father now is picking their kids up, taking them back to where he lives, in 1,000 miles away. And then mom is mad because what's going to happen when the kids come back, because there's the quarantine. I can't take off work. Why am I expected to sit in quarantine with the kids? So you have to, and I see it on both sides. I see, for dad, what's dad going to do? Is dad going to come and stay in New Jersey for 14 days in quarantine with the kids in a hotel room? That's ridiculously expensive and unpractical.
Yeah.
But can't expect mom to take off of work either to quarantine with the kids. And by the way, she can't quarantine with the kids necessarily because she wasn't with the kids for the last 7 days.
That's right. That's right.
So we ended up with that, fashioning a proposed solution, which was getting getting a test before coming home, a few days beforehand to get the results, and then having dad come and stay here for a day, get a rapid test to just confirm a negative result. And then, that kind of work, it was a little bit of a workaround.
Yeah, that's a good way to deal with it. We have we were just before we came on talking about a situation that doesn't involve holiday time, where the father in a case lives in Florida, doesn't see his son very often at all, and wanted to just come up and, but look, they live in the state of New York, and it's a mandatory 14-day quarantine. And so now, he's not taking 14 days off of work, right?
Right.
Which will really turn out to be probably 16 days when you figure out the travel and then the
Yeah.
time that you spend with the child. It really makes things very difficult, if not untenable, in order to have the physical parenting time with someone who is in a state that has a mandatory quarantine requirement for us.
Yeah. Yeah. New York's different. Like New Jersey, it's not as strict as New York right now.
Yeah, I mean, and so with you, when you have those situations, even if it's not strict, everybody is really very concerned about exposure. Obviously, we're only a couple of days into the vaccine, and most of us aren't eligible to get the
Right.
vaccine right now, because we're not in the population that's eligible. And so, we have these workarounds that you may need to have an attorney sit down with you and deal with them. If you're trying to do it for next week, it's probably too late.
Right. What do you think about, and this is not to be political at all, but what do you think about individuals if you have two parents and one parent is believing in science and saying, I want masks and distance and quarantines and all of this. I understand this is what I want to do. And you have another parent who just completely doesn't believe in any of that. How do you resolve that?
I tell you, it's really complicated because you have all kinds of constitutional rights, right? You got parents have a constitutional right to parent their children in the way that they see fit. When those rights clash, right? In my humble opinion, we have to rely upon what the science says and what the CDC says and what the health agencies in our respective states say is the best thing to do. Look, we're dealing with the lives of children. These are our most precious things. These are the little people that folks spend to the last in order to preserve, whether you're spending your money or you're spending your time or you're spending your emotions. And so they, as far as I'm concerned, have to be protected at just about any cost. And so if you have a situation where you have somebody who's an anti-masker, or you have someone who, believes that COVID is a hoax, there are still people who believe that COVID is a hoax out there. I cannot, in good conscience, say that I'm just going to be okay with fashioning an agreement that just allows this person to take the children with no mask, and there's no testing, and there's no. I can't personally say that I would be in good conscience to do that, and that's probably being somewhat biased because I'm a mom.
Right. Well, I'm not a mom, and I think that I am also not an expert or a scientist or an
Epidemiologist.
Yes, thank you. So I can't say that I should substitute my opinion, even if it was no mask, for the opinion of what experts are saying are the proper protocol to protect yourself and others. So, without being a parent, I think that's where I have to draw the line and say, these are what the experts are saying. This is how we have to err on the side of. And
And you know what? That the bottom line is that even without being parents, without being epidemiologists, without being other types of medical doctors and scientists, this is probably what the judges are going to abide by. At the end of the day, no judge is likely to just put themselves out there and say, oh, you know what? Your constitutional right trumps this one, trumps the custodials, or vice versa. And so off we go, do what you want to do.
And by the way, if they did and something happened to a kid,
that's them. That's them. So no.
Yep.
Steph, this was a great show.
It was a great show. Yeah, we covered a lot of topics.
We sure did. We didn't even look. This is what we do for the people. Okay, This was supposed to be a holiday show. We dipped into all kinds of stuff. We dipped into facilitating parenting relationships. We dipped into COVID. We dipped into a whole bunch of things. That's what we do, and that's why people watch Undoing I Do.
Yes, they do. And by the way, if you know someone that's a parent, co-parent, and they need some information, just share this episode with them. We'd really appreciate it. And if any of you watching on the replay or even watching now want to see what the New Jersey holiday schedule is, just put a comment in and I'm happy to post it for you guys.
Absolutely. It has been such a pleasure to spend yet another Thursday evening with you. We
Me
are going
too.
to be off next week
Yes.
celebrating in our houses.
Probably in the same spot I am now.
Probably.
It's like Groundhog Day since March.
Yep, absolutely. It just complete it just yeah, just keeps happening. And you know I'm a travel girl, so it's been hard. It's been hard. And
It
a
has
friend of
been.
a friend of mine is traveling to a nice warm sunny place, and she was like, yeah, you guys should come down. And I said, oh, because it was COVID and I didn't really think I was going to go anywhere, kind of sort of let the passports expire. Then I tried to get passport application, a passport appointment, and all of the appointments are jammed. So I guess other people are traveling and they're going to be in the warm sunny place and I'm not, but it's okay, I'm not upset.
Turn your heat up to 75.
Right. Right. I can project. I can, Anyway, everybody have a wonderful holiday. Thanks for sharing time with us again. We appreciate you watching. Share and like.
Happy holidays. Good night.